Okay, so just a little bit of details about myself. I'm one of the founders for one of the founding members for a startup called Shipa, where we focus exactly on the application deployment when it comes to Kubernetes and the management of the app. And I had an opportunity before to also do another startup, more kind of the cloud infrastructure and automation space, which was then acquired by Juniper Networks. And this all, I think, kind of came in frustration of the goal that I wanted to actually be a musician, but I quickly realized that I was not good enough to make money with that. So I had to switch over to do something and make money. Otherwise, I would just be a frustration for my parents at the end of the day. So that's how kind of everything started. And when we look at Ketch, it's funny because we're now, a lot of folks are now asking us, we should have a project, a command line called catch up, just to be a catch up. We'll get there. But the reason why we started Ketch and we open source Ketch in itself is a part of Shipa that we decided to open source. And the reason why we did it is because if you look at the way most of the pipeline today is set up, you have a developer. The developer is basically, you have your Git, GitLab, GitHub, or whatever you have in place today. You have your CI pipeline with Jenkins, Git Actions, and others, and you need to deliver your application on different Kubernetes clusters, right? And what is happening is that today, in the middle between your CI pipeline and your Kubernetes clusters, today there is quite a bit of a bridge that you have to build. Either the developer has to build on some organizations, or the platform operator has to build on others. And the challenge with that is building that bridge between your CI pipeline and your Kubernetes cluster. It involves a lot of custom scripts, Helm charts, customize, which is not always very clear to folks on how to effectively build it. And on the other side of the equation, you have your developers who now they have to learn Kubernetes, they have to learn what deployment sets are, what ingress rules are, and how to get their applications deployed on Kubernetes. Learning is always great, but as a developer, having to maintain those objects and creating and so on creates complexity for you on a day-to-day basis. So given that scenario, we decided to create Ketch, which basically automates or helps developers to automate the deployment of their applications on Kubernetes. What we did from a Ketch perspective is we created we brought the concept that we have on Shipa that it's called basically pools. Pools is basically the same thing as your namespaces on Kubernetes. But when you're creating your pools, basically you have some more control around it. You can define ingress, you can define app quota, namespace, and some controls that are very easy for both the developer and the DevOps to create. So you can see everything directly from here. It gives you some controls around it, and you don't need to learn all the objects within Kubernetes itself. But the key thing comes to me as a developer. If I'm a developer, I can quickly get up and running without actually knowing Kubernetes. And how I do that is I can follow an example and say, I'm going to create a pool, basically a namespace, where I'm going to point to a specific endpoint. It's called on these two. So do catch pool add, and I'll call a pool called development or dev. And now I'm going to create an application. I'm going to create an application called bulletin board. And I'm going to deploy my application, which is basically, I have an image already stored somewhere on Docker Hub. And I'll just do a catch app deploy bulletin board, and I'll pass my image. That's it. So Shipa will start all your deployments. In my case, as a developer, I didn't need to create any deployment sets, ingress rules, and others, and it automatically gives me a CNAME that I can access my application in a minute as soon as it's up. If you want to add specific CNAMEs, you can also do that as a developer with catch CNAME add, for example. So now it becomes really easy for me as a developer to start getting my applications deployed. And while this is a standard kind of deployment of an application, if I need to customize specific things, now then I can create a Helm chart out of it. And Ketch also actually helps you to do an automatic creation of your Helm charts. So you as a developer, you don't need to learn how to create and put this all together. And all the charts, the templates and everything, you can point Ketch to an application you have deployed and say, export a chart for me. And it will automatically create all the Helm charts, which you can then customize if needed and re-import it. The other part on Ketch as well is that we made it to be integrated into your CI pipeline and workflow. So here in this example, I have it integrated with Git Actions, for example, where Git builds up my code, builds up my image, store my image inside Google Container Registry, and at the end of the day, basically creates a pool and deploys the application. And if you look at my code, I don't have any Kubernetes object in terms of deployment sets, YAML files for Kubernetes with your ingress rules and everything else. I basically have this integrated into my CI pipeline, and I can deploy. So at the end of the day, we want to make it easier for developers to learn or to use Kubernetes at scale and get their applications deployed a lot faster. And you have a lot more details that you can find on on our documentation on learn.theketch.io, as well as available on the website called theketch.io, as well as on GitHub. And we're happy to answer questions and help you get started as you see fit as well. So I think that's it on my side.